Welcome to Lesson 4 of Week 13, focusing on time and effort reporting. This lesson covers one of the most critical and frequently misunderstood compliance requirements in federal grant management, certifying that staff salaries charged to grants accurately reflect work actually performed. This topic requires a serious legal notice before we proceed. Effort certification is a legal attestation. When you sign an effort report, you are legally certifying that the distribution of effort is accurate. False certification can result in serious consequences, including audit findings, required repayment of funds, debarment from federal funding, and potential criminal liability under the False Claims Act. This is not merely an administrative requirement, it carries legal weight. This lesson provides educational context about effort reporting requirements, but it does not constitute guidance for your specific certification decisions. Follow your institution's specific effort reporting policies and procedures. When questions arise, consult with your sponsored programs office or compliance personnel. By the end of this lesson, you will understand why effort reporting matters, how the process works, common compliance problems, and how to maintain accurate records. This knowledge supports compliant grant management. Understanding why effort reporting matters helps you appreciate its importance. This is not bureaucratic paperwork, it is a fundamental compliance requirement with significant implications. Personnel costs are often the largest expense category in federal grants. When salaries represent 50 to 70% of your budget, accurate allocation of those costs is essential. Small percentage errors in personnel allocation can represent substantial dollar amounts. Given the magnitude of personnel costs, rigorous documentation is warranted. Federal requirements in 2 CFR 200.430 mandate that charges to federal awards for salaries and wages be based on records that accurately reflect the work performed. These records must be supported by a system of internal controls providing reasonable assurance that charges are accurate, allowable, and properly allocated. Audit focus on personnel costs reflects their magnitude and risk. Auditors routinely examine effort documentation as part of grant audits. Inadequate effort documentation frequently generates audit findings. Problems with effort certification can trigger broader concerns about organizational controls. Legal attestation means your signature on an effort report certifies the accuracy of the reported distribution. This certification carries legal consequences. The False Claims Act imposes significant penalties for false statements in connection with federal funds. Effort certification is one area where individual employees can have personal liability. Understanding what effort means in this context prevents common misunderstandings. Effort has a specific definition in federal grant compliance. Effort is the proportion of time spent on a particular activity relative to your total compensated institutional activities. It represents the distribution of your work across different funding sources and activities. Effort is not simply hours worked. It is the relative allocation of your professional time. Total effort represents all work for which you receive compensation from your employer. This includes all sponsored projects, teaching responsibilities, administrative duties, and other institutional activities. Your total effort encompasses everything you do in your institutional role. Effort is expressed as a percentage rather than as hours. You might report that you devoted 40% of your effort to a federal grant, 30% to teaching, and 30% to administrative duties. This percentage approach normalizes effort across individuals with different appointment types and working patterns. Effort must total 100% across all activities. The sum of all your effort allocations should equal your total compensated institutional effort. If percentages do not sum to 100, something is missing or incorrectly allocated. This totaling requirement helps ensure complete and accurate reporting. The effort certification process has specific characteristics that distinguish it from routine timekeeping. Understanding this process enables proper compliance. After-the-fact confirmation means you certify effort after the work is performed, not in advance. You are attesting to what actually happened, not what you plan to do. This retrospective certification must reflect actual effort expended during the period, which may differ from budgeted or planned effort. Certification periods typically cover a semester, quarter, or other meaningful time period. The specific period depends on your institution's system. Certifying over an extended period allows for averaging of effort that may vary week to week while ensuring regular documentation of effort distribution. Who certifies matters for validity. The certifier must have first-hand knowledge of the work performed. This is typically the employee themselves or a supervisor with suitable means of verification. Certification by someone without knowledge of the actual work has no validity. Direct knowledge of activities is essential. Documentation through written certification must be retained for audit purposes. The certification record proves that proper attestation occurred. Retain certifications according to your organization's record retention requirements, typically at least 3 years after final closeout of the related grants. Institutional base salary is a key concept in effort reporting. Understanding this term prevents calculation errors and compliance problems. Institutional base salary, often called IBS, is your annual compensation for your institutional appointment. This is the salary upon which effort percentages are applied to determine charges to grants and other funding sources. The relationship between effort and salary creates the basis for personnel cost allocation. The basis for calculations uses institutional base salary multiplied by effort percentage to determine the salary amount charged to each activity. If your base salary is $100,000 and you devote 40% effort to a grant, $40,000 would be charged to that grant. This calculation assumes effort and salary align proportionally. Exclusions typically apply to items outside regular institutional compensation. Bonuses, incentive payments, one-time awards, and summer salary for 9-month faculty are often excluded from institutional base salary. Your institution's policies define exactly what is included and excluded. Consistency requirement means the same base salary must be used across all effort calculations. You cannot use a higher base for calculating charges to grants and a lower base for other activities. Consistent application of institutional base salary ensures proper allocation of total compensation. Committed effort creates obligations that affect how you manage grant activities. Understanding committed effort requirements prevents compliance problems. Proposal commitment is the effort you promised in your grant application. When you proposed that the principal investigator would devote 40% effort to the project, that became part of what was evaluated and approved. Reviewers assessed feasibility based on committed effort. Funders approved based on proposed personnel. Award requirement transforms proposal commitment into a binding obligation. Once the grant is awarded, you are expected to provide the effort you committed. The grant was funded in part because of the personnel commitment you made. Failing to provide committed effort undermines the basis for the award. Variation tolerance acknowledges that actual effort may vary somewhat from commitment. Minor fluctuations are generally acceptable. If you committed 40% and actually provided 38%, that small variation is typically not problematic. However, persistent or significant deviations require attention. Significant changes in effort require notification or prior approval. If the principal investigator's effort will decrease by more than 25% from what was approved, prior approval from the funder may be required. Significant effort reductions can affect project viability. Communicate with your program officer when substantial effort changes are anticipated. Common problems with effort reporting cause many compliance difficulties. Awareness of these problems helps you avoid them. Overcommitment occurs when you promise more effort than you have available. If you commit 40% to each of 3 grants, you have committed 120% of your effort before accounting for any non-sponsored activities. Overcommitment is mathematically impossible to fulfill and creates inevitable compliance problems. Review total commitments before accepting new awards. Misaligned charging happens when salary charges do not match actual effort. If 40% of your salary is charged to a grant, but you only devoted 20% effort to that work, the charges are incorrect. Similarly, if you devoted significant effort to a project but charged nothing, you may be cost-sharing without documenting it. Alignment between charges and effort is essential. Late certification delays completion of effort reports past their due dates. Delayed certification increases the risk of inaccuracy since memories fade over time. It also creates backlogs that can trigger audit concerns. Complete effort certifications promptly while the period is fresh in mind. Inadequate records mean insufficient support for the effort you certified. If you certified 40% effort on a project but have no calendars, records, or other documentation showing that work, your certification lacks support. Maintain contemporaneous records that corroborate your certified effort. Federal regulations recognize that effort tracking involves estimates and reasonable approximations. Understanding the reasonableness standard helps you comply appropriately. Reasonable estimates are acceptable because precise hour-by-hour tracking of professional effort is often impractical. 2 CFR 200 recognizes that precise measurement is not always possible or necessary. What is required is a reasonable estimate of effort distribution, not perfect precision. The goal is substantial accuracy, not false precision. Suitable means of verification support certification. Certifiers need not have observed every hour of work, but they need appropriate methods for verifying effort distribution. This might include direct observation, review of work products, project records, or regular communication with the employee. The means should be suitable to the circumstances. After-the-fact adjustment reconciles initial estimates with actual experience. If payroll charges were based on planned effort but actual effort differed, adjustments should be made. The certification process provides an opportunity to confirm that charges match actual effort and make corrections where needed. Documentation support means records should corroborate certified percentages. Calendars showing meetings and activities, emails discussing project work, progress reports, and other documentation help support the reasonableness of certified effort. While documentation need not prove every percentage point, it should be consistent with certified effort. Principal investigators have specific responsibilities for effort on their projects. Understanding these responsibilities supports proper project management. Personal certification means principal investigators certify their own effort expended on their projects. No one else can certify your effort if you are capable of doing so yourself. Your signature on your effort report is your personal attestation that the reported distribution is accurate. Team oversight involves awareness of effort expended by other personnel on your project. While you may not certify others' effort directly, you should have general knowledge of whether project personnel are devoting appropriate effort. If someone is charging effort to your project but not visibly working on it, that is a concern you should address. Commitment monitoring tracks whether the effort committed in your proposal is actually being provided. If you committed 40% effort but find yourself only able to devote 20%, you have a potential problem. Monitor your own and team members' effort against commitments throughout the project. Problem resolution means addressing effort issues promptly when they arise. If effort is misaligned with charges, make corrections. If commitments cannot be met, communicate with your sponsored programs office and potentially with the funder. Problems that are addressed promptly cause less damage than those that accumulate. Cost sharing interacts with effort reporting in important ways. Understanding this interaction ensures proper documentation of matching contributions. Mandatory cost sharing is required contributions specified in your award. When the funder requires you to provide matching funds, you must document that you met this requirement. Mandatory cost sharing appears in your notice of award and creates a binding obligation. Voluntary committed cost sharing involves contributions you offered in your proposal, even though the funder did not require them. If you propose that certain personnel would contribute effort to the project at no charge to the grant, that voluntary commitment typically becomes binding once the award is made. You must deliver and document what you promised. Tracking requirements mean cost sharing must be documented and certified like direct charges. The same standards for accuracy and documentation apply to cost sharing. You must be able to demonstrate that required or committed contributions were actually made. Inadequate cost-sharing documentation can result in audit findings. Effort as match uses unreimbursed effort to satisfy cost-sharing requirements. If you devote effort to a project without charging that salary to the grant, the value of that effort can count as cost-sharing. However, this effort must be documented and certified just like charged effort. Unreimbursed effort that is not properly documented cannot be counted as match. Effective effort reporting requires institutional systems and support. Understanding system requirements helps you work within your organization's framework. Institutional policy provides written guidance governing effort reporting at your organization. Policies should define terms, establish procedures, assign responsibilities, and address common situations. If you are uncertain about effort reporting, your institutional policy is the first reference to consult. Certification systems provide mechanisms for completing and tracking effort certifications. Many institutions use electronic systems that route certifications to appropriate individuals, track completion status, and maintain records. Understanding how your system works enables timely compliance. Training programs educate faculty and staff on effort reporting requirements. Training should cover basic concepts, institutional procedures, common mistakes, and where to get help. If you have not received effort reporting training, request it from your sponsored programs office. Monitoring procedures verify that the system functions properly. Institutions should monitor certification completion rates, review certifications for reasonableness, and follow up on late or problematic certifications. Monitoring supports both institutional compliance and identification of individual problems that need attention. Audits frequently examine effort documentation. Understanding audit implications reinforces the importance of proper effort reporting. Common finding area describes effort documentation as an area frequently questioned in audits. Auditors look for complete and timely certifications, alignment between certified effort and salary charges, and documentation supporting certified amounts. Weaknesses in any of these areas can generate findings. Questioned costs result when auditors determine that effort documentation is inadequate. If you cannot demonstrate that personnel costs were properly supported, those costs may be questioned. Questioned costs require response and may ultimately be disallowed if explanations are unsatisfactory. Repayment risk exists because disallowed personnel costs may require repayment to the federal government. Given that personnel often represents the majority of grant budgets, disallowed salary costs can represent substantial amounts. Repayment comes from institutional funds, not from grant funds. Institutional impact occurs because widespread effort reporting problems affect the entire organization. If auditors find systemic issues with effort certification, the finding may extend beyond individual grants to institutional practices. Material weaknesses in effort reporting can affect an institution's ability to receive and manage federal funds. The False Claims Act creates serious legal implications for effort certification. This information is provided for educational context, not legal advice. Legal notice reminds you that false effort certification can have serious legal consequences beyond administrative audit findings. This is one area of grant management where individual liability is possible. The stakes are significant. The False Claims Act is federal law prohibiting false statements made to obtain federal funds or avoid obligations to the federal government. Knowingly certifying false effort information to support salary charges to federal grants can violate this law. The Act applies to knowing false statements, not honest mistakes. Potential penalties under the False Claims Act include civil penalties of over $11,000 per false claim, plus 3 times the amount of damages. In egregious cases, criminal prosecution is possible. These penalties can apply to individuals, not just institutions. The consequences of deliberate false certification are severe. Whistleblower provisions in the False Claims Act allow individuals who report fraud to receive a portion of any recovery. These provisions create incentives for people with knowledge of false effort certification to report it. Colleagues who observe problematic practices have both protection and incentive to come forward. Best practices for effort reporting protect you and your organization. Following these practices supports compliance and reduces risk. Maintain records by keeping calendars, meeting notes, and other documentation of your activities. These records support your effort certifications if questions arise. While you need not track every minute, you should have evidence consistent with your certified effort distribution. Records created at the time are more credible than reconstructions after the fact. Certify promptly by completing certifications when they are due. Prompt certification while the period is fresh in mind improves accuracy. Delayed certification increases error risk and creates administrative backlogs. Make effort certification a priority, not an afterthought. Review carefully before signing to ensure certified percentages are accurate. Your certification is a legal attestation. Read what you are certifying and confirm it reflects your actual effort. If the proposed distribution does not look right, investigate before signing. Corrections before certification are much easier than corrections afterward. Ask questions when you are uncertain about effort reporting. Your sponsored programs office, research compliance office, or department administrator can help. Uncertainty is not unusual. Effort reporting involves judgment and estimation. Getting guidance is better than guessing wrong. Let us summarize the key points from this lesson on time and effort reporting. Effort certification is a legal attestation with serious implications. When you sign an effort report, you are certifying under penalty of law that the distribution is accurate. False certification can result in audit findings, required repayment, debarment, and potential liability under the False Claims Act. Take effort certification seriously. Essential practices include maintaining accurate records of your activities, completing certifications promptly when they are due, and reviewing certifications carefully before signing. These practices support accurate reporting and provide documentation if questions arise. Good practices protect you and your organization. Institutional support is available through your organization's policies and support offices. Follow your institution's specific effort reporting procedures. When questions arise, consult with your sponsored programs office, research compliance office, or other appropriate resources. You do not have to figure this out alone. In our next lesson, we cover procurement standards for purchases made with grant funds. You will learn about federal requirements for competition, documentation, and conflict of interest when buying goods and services with grant money. Practice exercise. Review your institution's effort reporting policy, identify your certification schedule, understand who is responsible for what, and locate resources for questions. If you have not completed effort reporting training, request it.